Welcome to River Tales. River Tales is a 30-minute program that will introduce you to fascinating people, take you to interesting places, and inform you on events in your local community. River Tales is brought to you by Southeast Health.
Southeast Health. From when you're first expecting to those unexpected accidents, and from fighting illness to staying well. Throughout your life and throughout generations, we'll be here when you need us and where you need us. Southeast Health. The difference is how you're treated. Join us online.
On this edition of River Tales, a local company is brewing up their own beer, the annual Polar Plunge, and we'll visit Old St. Vincent Church in Cape Girardeau. Stay tuned for River Tales.
Southeast Health. Diagnosis. Treatment. Rehabilitation. Prevention. A system of care. Here when you need us and where you need us. Southeast Health. The difference is how you're treated. Join us online.
Matt Hubrew and family members started Hubrew, a local beer, much to the delight of businesses and fans of the brew.
John A. Huber, started the John A. Huber Brewing Company. My wife gave me a home beer making kit about 8 years ago and started out doing 1 gallon and now I'm doing over 200. Actually, I started the brew supply shop 3 years ago when I kind of decided not to do the brewery. And then after a couple years, my sons aggravating me that they wanted to do it, so we decided, myself and my 2 sons, to go in business and do it.
My name is Matt Huber. I am one of the business managers, owners of Hubrew. We're a small local microbrewery out of Jackson, Missouri. My dad was a home brewer just by hobby, and I was an MBA student at Southeast taking some entrepreneurship courses. Listening to the speakers over the years tell their stories, how they've started their businesses, really motivated me to look into what it would take to start the brewery. And my dad and brother came on board and we were all for it. And it wouldn't have been for the speakers that I heard at Southeast, I really wouldn't have got the motivation to really get this thing up and going. As with most small businesses, there's a lot of things that you're not really expecting when you get started. We've had a lot of trials just being a small manufacturer and distributor, comparing us to the large distributors. We've had a lot of markets that are hard to get into, but the longer we've been at it, the easier it's getting. The first sale we had was at Bel Air Bar and Grill, downtown Cape Girardeau. Me and my brother had worked there through college. We knew the owners. That was our first sale, and that was a really big one for us. It got us some good exposure. Schnucks and Primo Vino have been some good stores for us too, and it kind of took off from there. Cup and Cork has been a good relationship that we've had. They've got all of our beers on draft.
In the middle of July, right after lunch, it was like 112 degrees outside, and it felt like it had been for 6 years. This like 6'3", 4-inch Iowa farm boy looking kid comes busting in here and he says, "Can I speak to the manager?" And he's red in the face, he's a little out of breath because it was just miserable outside. And I said, "Well, I'm the owner." And he said, "I'd like to talk to you about Hubrew. It's brewed in Jackson." I said, "I'll take it." He said, "It's a local brewery. We brew 2 different flavors." I said, "I'll take it. We can have some here." I said, "Just bring me the beer." I had gone back to finish my undergraduate degree at SEMO a few years ago, and it turned out that Matt Huber, the son of the guy that was the master brewer there, and I had had some business classes together. So almost at the same time we go, business law, right? So it was kind of cool to be doing business with somebody that we both had gone to school to do certain things, and we were both doing them. He was an entrepreneur starting a brewery basically from scratch, even though his dad had been home brewing for years. And it was just cool to be doing business with him. So, and right now I'm proud to say we're the only place in town that offers all of their beers, all the flavors available on tap. I'm proud to do it.
Hey, I'm Timex Seabaugh. I'm one of the family owners. I do sound and lights, some of the entertainment work here.
I'm JJ Seabaugh. I do booking and promoting. I'm one of the owners. I do a lot of the bar managing. I think you'll see us both here all the time.
JJ was the first one. JJ does a lot of the ordering of the beer. He was the first one to tell me about Hubrew, and then started sort of seeing the signs around. We like anything local, especially here. We like local art, we like local music, we like local beer, we like local wine. We think it's important to support local stuff. We're a local bar for local people, so we try to do as much of that as we can. We have all the corporate stuff that everyone wants as well, but you get that extra special local flavor and local taste. And people who are involved with some of these local businesses, and we like to support that as well as art and music, all of that thing. Who, it's a local flavor. It's something different than you're going to get from, say, a bar in Memphis or a bar in LA. This is local flavor, kind of brings in something special for you. It's like buying local honey. You know, it's just good for you.
Some of the tips I would give other people wanting to start a business is to just ask a lot of questions, seek out help. Entrepreneurs in general are very friendly and they want to help you. We asked a lot of small breweries around the area, and they were more than happy to give us some information and some help. The Innovation Center at Southeast is very helpful too. They've got a lot of resources with their business counselors and planning purposes. But yeah, just don't be afraid to ask questions is one of the biggest tips I would give people.
It's just like a restaurant. You better have your recipes right. You better be able to give it at what is perceived as a value, and you better be darn consistent. Because if your quality of your beer goes up and down, then the confidence from the consumer, from you, is going to go up and down as well, and it's seen as a risk and a gamble. And regardless of there being a casino in town, folks don't really like to gamble with that sort of stuff.
Well, the main thing with any of that is finding something that you like doing and that you would do for free anyways. And then that way you're going to put your heart into it, and you're going to be more excited about what you're doing. The same as the local brews. These are local guys who are doing it because they want to, not because they're trying to become something huge. They just enjoy what they're doing. They enjoy drinking their beer. You know, if you're going to start some sort of a business, find something that you really enjoy. And if you like doing it for free and you start making money at it, then you're on the right way.
Each year, several sorority and fraternity members from Southeast Missouri State take the plunge into the freezing waters of Lake Bowden to raise funds and awareness for the Special Olympics.
This year at Plunge, there had to have, like volunteers jumping in, there had to have been at least 200, I'd say. It's a really good turnout. To participate, to actually plunge, each member has to raise, I think, about $75 to actually plunge. I mean, if you don't want to plunge, you can always raise the money and have somebody else plunge for you. but I think overall you have to raise at least 75. People always like to go above and beyond that, but.
Fraternity's been participating in this as long as I can remember. I've been here for 2 years, and we've done it the past 2 years. I've known other guys in the past who've done it too, so as long as I can remember. We raised about $200 a person, so like we had 3 guys, so $600. I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, this is gonna suck. It's gonna be so cold. Then we went and got our body paint on, and then we came here, waiting in line, took forever, so it's just adding to the nerves. Once we got like introduced and everything, it started calming down, and we got into the water. I just went crazy, and it was awesome. It was cold, real cold.
You get together an organization and you raise money in your organization, and then you make a team, and the money that you raise goes towards the Special Olympics. And then your team like picks a theme, like something funny to do together to dress up, and then you all plunge into like this lake that's like freezing water, like super, super cold. It's a good time. It just gets everybody together, and it's just a fun time. This year, I think we didn't get to the 1,000 mark. Really, this year we got just below it. Last year we raised almost $1,500. So, but this year we made a little bit under the $1,000 mark. The point of Polar Bear Plunge is to raise money for Special Olympics and children and adults with those special needs. My favorite thing was one group dressed up as like the cast of Scooby-Doo, and they had a huge like Great Dane that they brought with them and put like spots on him. And it was really cute. There was another team who dressed up as like animals from like Noah's Ark, and each person was a different animal, and they had a big cardboard like ark, and it was really funny. And the Cape Girardeau Police Department always gets into it every year, and this year they dressed up as like newscasters, and like were coming up to people with microphones and like asking them like how they were doing and what was going on. So it's always really funny and a good time.
I mean, I thought raising the money was the best part because I've never really raised money in high school or anything. This was my first community service event that I've actually been a part of. And I think I raised around 150 or so. I think we all did about that much each. So there's 6 of us. So we raised quite a bit of money ourselves. When we first got here, it was pretty windy, but I was wearing this. And then once I took this off, the wind picked up, so it got a little worse for me. But then we ran into the water, and I just had a blast. This is our 2nd year participating because our fraternity just changed to the Special Olympics 2 years ago. So we picked up Plunge, and it's our 2nd year doing it. I think we raised more money this year than last year.
Yeah, it was definitely a competition. We set some little bets to see who got there the longest. First one out had to do whatever.
Yeah, unfortunately that was me. Ran out there a little ways, dove in, rose instantly, and ran right out. But it was all for a good cause, so it's worth it.
I think it's screamed like
I'm a member of Alpha Chi Omega sorority, and last year we did like a princess theme, and we wore tutus. This year we did more like a sports theme, so we wore like a lot of Blues jerseys and Cardinal shirts, and did like the eye black, and got together, and then it all got ruined by the cold water. But it's just a way for everyone to really get into it, and picking a theme, it's like just a way to have fun, kind of take your mind off the freezing water, and everyone usually does it. I think it's just a tradition. Greek life is a big part of Southeast, and when we go to things like Polar Plunge and like Special Olympics, it is a lot of Greek students. I've seen a lot of other Southeast students go, but it's just something we've done for a long time. It's tradition. SEMO Greek system, probably been doing it for about 12 years or so. And I think it does represent Southeast, like the university well, and the Greek system well. So it's just something like that we like to give back to the community. And we do a lot of other things, but Polar Bear Plunge has always been one of our favorites.
Old St. Vincent Church is one of the oldest Catholic churches west of the Mississippi River. We'll take a look at this historic structure and visit with the present caretakers.
For at least 100 years, people on the river saw this church first and recognized this is Cape Girardeau. And so this church became a symbol and an identity for this community. This church stands right at the apex of the crossroads that tells us so much about the evolution of this community and of this region. It's a very significant location because of the wide flat riverfront and the gentle incline to the interior. Well placed, and the river was at its door. Buildings make a difference in our lives, and this building has made a difference in the lives of the people of Cape Girardeau. They can't drive by without looking at it. It has a pull, a magnetism about it, and that very much is how I see the Catholic Church in the first half of the 19th century. It had a magnetism, it had a power, it had a stabilizing influence, all of the traditions, all of the values, all the patience, all the charity, and all the teachings of the Catholic Church.
Catholicism grew, and slowly in the area. There were enough people here by 1836 that they were able to establish a parish.
The original church was built in 1838. That's when it was completed and consecrated.
A tornado came along in 1850 and just demolished everything. A few of the foundation pieces were left, and that was it. I mean, and this was a stone building, so it was a pretty fierce tornado.
Just about everything got blown away, like the steeple and the bell and all of that part, the windows, all that was blown away. But evidently, the rocks for that church did not get blown too far, because they were able to gather them up, and they used the rocks from that church, including the walls, and what they did is they built the foundation for this church using the rocks.
They made plans then to erect this present building. They hired an architect named Thomas Waring Walsh, a young Irishman from St. Louis, and he designed it, and it was built, it was completed in 1853.
It's an English, Gothic English style, in my view. I think that had it been built, this church been built 20 years before, it would look a lot different. Had it been built 20 years later, it would look a lot different. So it reflects the middle of the 19th century, reflects the 1850s. They borrowed from the traditions of Europe in the best sense, and they wanted to make a statement with this structure. So the ceiling, the interior of this church, the piers, all of these reflect very much a statement of what you believed would connect man to his religious feelings and emotions. So this is really a church that I see that connects to traditional architecture, church architecture, and sacred places. And it is, of course, a beautiful place. And it is probably the most beautiful place in Cape Girardeau. There is a question about the Vincentian nature of this community. If you think about St. Vincent's Seminary, St. Vincent's Elementary School, if you think about St. Vincent's Female Academy, this church, it is a Vincentian community. And for virtually all of Cape Girardeau's history, from the 1830s forward, the Vincentian presence, I think, from a religious perspective, is dominant in this community. If you look at the other denominations in town, they have very limited congregations, very small congregations. The most powerful church, the most powerful sense of unity in a religious sense belonged here. And so I think that the church, the seminary, the female academy, all had a great impact.
All the priests at the seminary who were teachers were Vincentians, and they were the pastors of this church through the years. They not only served at the seminary, and they lived there. That's why we didn't have a rectory. But they were the pastors, and until the seminary was disbanded. So it's been a very important connection there.
I think the motivation for saving this was a realization by many people in the community that this is too great a historic structure, an architectural structure to lose. There was just a strong desire to save it, to preserve it, because I think people were connected to this church, culturally, socially, even politically. This was a structure, a church that meant something to so many people.
New St. Vincent de Paul Church was built, and they did not want another parish down here. St. Mary's had this area, and so they wanted to close it. But there were some parishioners here who said, no, you can't, no, no, no. And they fought. They really worked hard.
The Catholic Church told us when we were all together, you know, having our worship here, that they were going to move the church over near the new church where build the new church where the school was and where the priest lived. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And they told us that nothing would happen to this building. Well, when you say nothing is going to happen to a building, that's just it. Nothing happens to it. No one saves it. No one tries to restore it. People just let it deteriorate. Well, the idea of letting this church, this churchy church, deteriorate and let it go into rubble, I could not tolerate that. We went to the newspapers, the television, different ones of us, to plead our case, because we didn't think we could save the minds of the Catholic hierarchy. But we thought if we could get enough people behind us, we would be able to get something going that would cause enough rubble that we would be able to at least let them listen to us. Many of us stood outside Catholic churches in the area to get petitions signed to save the old church. We stood out in all kinds of weather, contacting people as they came and went from the Catholic services in other churches. would you be interested in saving the old church? Well, of course we got a lot of signatures. And then we went to the bishop with all of these petitions and saying, look, this is the way the people in Cape Girardeau feel. Finally, I believe the bishop contacted our Father Goshi, who was at St. Mary's Church at the time, and asked him if he would be willing to take on the added responsibility of Old St. Vincent's Church, and he said he would. So he was the one who was a great leader for us at that time. And it was because he was willing to do the extra work to help to save the church. Our renovation was funded by a lot by our own parishioners, but by the city of Cape Girardeau largely. We had the Friends of Old St. Vincent's made up of different business leaders and also members from our church and Father Goshi. But we also had the parishioners. And we were called, I think, the people of Old St. Vincent's, but in many of those instances, we both were doing the same thing. We needed to go to the Friends of Old St. Vincent's in order to get the funds, because they were the ones who held the money bags. But we were the ones who knew what the church needed, who hired the decorator, the architect, but we needed to have the approval of the Friends of Old St. Vincent's in order to get this accomplished. In order to take care of the interior of the church and the exterior, there were many problems. For one thing, our exterior has to have a coating on it every 10 years or about, because we have the old bricks.
The water got between the stucco and the brick of this church, and it was ruining the plaster in this whole church. So when they were getting ready for the centennial celebration of this church in the early 1950s, they removed the stucco from the building, and they also had to replaster this whole church. So even though it doesn't look like it, the ceilings are all plaster, the walls are all plaster, everything had to be replastered in the early 1950s.
This building was very structurally sound. So once that was established, then how many other things needed to be done? It was the roof needed to be replaced. And so we elected to replace the roof with the most expensive process because it would last longer. And everything that has been done, both with the exterior and the interior, has been done with an awful lot of research and an awful lot of caring to try to make it as perfect as we possibly could.
One of the best things that we ever did in restoring this church, and I highly recommend it to anyone that's doing the same type of work, is that we hired this good religious architect by the name of Ted Wolford. He was just tremendous. He did a lot of research on different things, and even in his travels to Europe, he researched it in great detail. He told us what to do, and we did it, basically.
I'm very pleased to be a part of this from the very beginning. It makes me proud. You know, as you get older, there aren't a lot of things you're real proud of, but being a part of saving this church is something that really pleases me.
The church has inspired us to historic preservation. The church has inspired us to stabilize and to refine and to educate. This church still teaches us every day.
There are thousands of dogs and cats housed in shelters that need your help. Local shelter professionals and volunteers give their heart and soul to help unwanted animals and deserve your support. Americans give millions every year to national animal organizations, but unless you give to your local shelter, you can't be sure that money will make it to the pets that need it most. Adopt, volunteer, and give to your local animal shelter. To find your local shelter, go to humaneforpets.org.